Hello my friends, I'm making a little book craft today. There was, maybe in like 2010 or so, there was a resurgence in the popularity of brag books, which are like little miniature photo albums that people keep in their purses and things. And I picked up a couple of those way back then, and I used to use these to store stickers, but I've used up a lot of my stickers, and I thought it would be neat to make a brag book of the different books that I've published, because, you know, anytime you're out and you introduce yourself as an author or writer, people always want to know about what you write. Thought it would be neat to have a little book full of all of my book covers, and then on this side have, you know, what the book is about. This is like the back cover copy, information about it. And I printed out all of my current book covers, but I did not put the back of book pieces in order. So I need to sort these out, but I also need to cut them down a little bit because they are wider than the book. So I'm gonna need to trim each one. And then hopefully this will fit better. Let's see. Yes. So yeah, that's the idea that I had, is just, you know, each book like this. And this is actually like the cover page. You would use something wider for the cover, but I have so many books that it's going to take both covers to fit everything in here. And I'm probably still going to need to remove some things. But yeah, I'm gonna trim up all of the little papers, and then we will have a little chat while I put this together. Okay, so I've got these kind of in order now, and this is also kind of a fun time for me to go through and share a little bit about all of the covers. These are the new covers that I recently made for the Snake's Blood Saga when I decided to update them. The original covers were digital illustrations, paintings done by me. And I still like this a lot better, but covers like this are what is a lot more popular in fantasy right now. I'm starting to see a little bit of a swing back in the other direction, but before I go back to having the painted covers, I would really like to redo, at the very least, the last two. I don't feel like I was really living up to the full potential of my artistic ability at the time. I don't know if it was because I was like really burned out and struggling, or if it was just like the time crunch of having so many books going out so fast, because I had written the entire 6-book series before I started querying the first book. And I queried for a while, and overall it went mostly well, I think. I had a lot of partial requests and a couple full requests, and people liked it, the agents liked it, but the feedback that I got generally was that there wasn't a market for that. And perhaps that was my fault, because that was back in like 2017, and these being published now would very much be labeled romantasy. And romantasy had not yet hit its stride. If I had queried a little bit later, maybe things would be very, very different for that series. But I ultimately had a small publisher that was going to print it under their fantasy imprint, and I had issues with the editor that I was supposed to work with. His behavior was not particularly gentlemanly toward me. And so I just decided to walk away and be a fantasy author on my own. After the Snake's Blood Saga was done was when I started working on Spectrum Legacy. This was a story that I started plotting out in 2014. It's my current work in progress. I'm finishing book 6. Hopefully by the end of April, I will have book 6 done and it will be in edits, but I guess we'll see how my catch-up plan works. Sometimes you can have the best of intentions and things still go awry, which has kind of been the story of my entire year so far. When I was printing these out, I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to have the descriptions for each book, but I decided that I was going to do it because you never know when somebody's going to want to know about the later books in the series. And since I have a book event, it's like a big multi-author signing event that's happening in my city, I thought it would be interesting to have, you know, a little book like this that I can easily pass to people to let them see so they can kind of flip through and read about all the books faster. I may not have space on my table for all of these because at this point I kind of have a lot of books. And these are just my fantasy titles. I used to have paranormal romance titles too, and I've unpublished all of those, but someday I'm going to find something to do with them. I think I'm going to leave this page blank so that I have space for book 6 to go in here when it's done. And then I will just continue with the Artisan Magic books. These are my Romantasy books. They're a series of standalones. They're interconnected standalones, so some of the characters from the earlier books make little cameos in later books, especially Gil, who is the assassin here. He's a meddler. He likes to have his fingers in every pie, so he shows up a lot. And this has been probably my most successful series so far, and it's really been fun to write. I originally based the stories off of like seasons, so the Assassin's Bride is autumn, Spymaster's Prize is winter, and then The Artificer's Wife takes place in the following spring. And I think it would be really nice to go back and write a 4th book so that I also have one for summer, but that is not on the table for this year. I cannot fit anything else in my schedule this year. I'm not even going to try. And then West King's Heist is an interesting series because it is a really, really fun series of novellas. The first 2 are novellas and the 3rd is a novel. And it is a really hard sell because people do not seem to enjoy solo heist books. When they want a fantasy heist, they want like the whole crew. But I always thought it would be really fun to write a story that followed the legendary thief's ascent to what makes him legendary. And the intention was that after the 3rd book, To Steal the Queen, there would be a series of, you know, other capers that he was involved in. And it just ultimately didn't work out that way just because the series was not super successful. There is one story that I have in mind that I would really love to write someday. And the working title for it is Tall versus the Tooth Fairy, which sounds silly, but it is like a really fun adventure of, it's like half heist, half mystery, and I think it would be so much fun to write it, but I can't justify it with how his series has performed, so it's on the someday table. Maybe someday I will be able to do that, but right now it's just not gonna work. But The Witch and the Worm is going to be starting a series. It'll be a series of standalones, and I have gotten to the end of this and I don't have room for more books, so I am going to have to choose. These got a little bit smudged. They were the first ones that I printed, but that's alright, I'm not going to worry about it. I think I'll do A Blood and Rain. Gale's Gift is just like a novella that I did that's like a very low stakes, cozy fantasy type thing, and once again it was something that I was a little too early for that trend. It's very popular now, but this was the first fantasy story that I published, so it hasn't garnered a whole lot of success. But I really liked this cover. I redid the cover last year, and this is actually a drawing that I did. It is a Photoshop digital painting, and I was really happy with how this turned out. I felt like it was a good example of how my artistic ability has improved. It also gave me a chance to share like a little bit of the world building that I've done for this, because this is actually set in the same world as the Snake's Blood saga. And here we've got the black sand beaches of lore. So this one I'm going to put aside. I will put Of Blood and Rain, and I think I'm actually going to put it facing outward so that I've got a book cover facing outward, and if anybody makes it that far into my collection of books, then I'm sure they'll be fine with seeing two descriptions face to face. This cover, and I'll turn it around in a second for you to see, was fun because it was a collaboration between me and my husband. My husband did the artwork, like the line art, and then I did the coloring. He does a lot of like comic style illustrations and things like that. He wants to do comics, and he has some fantasy and like horror fantasy comics that he is working on. But he did the line art for this, and I did the painting, and it was just really fun to work with him on something like this. So yeah, I guess ultimately I'm going to need to make two, because I've got my space for book 6 of Spectrum Legacy, but otherwise this little booklet is full. So once I start my next fantasy series, I am going to need to start another one of these. Hopefully I will be able to find some in the store. I haven't seen any of these little tiny photo albums lately, but this is how it turns out in the end, and it's nice and slim despite having so many covers in it. And I think this is going to fit really nicely into my purse, and it'll be a really nice thing to have in the future when I go to events, so I can just like pop this on my table, and if I don't have room for all of my books out on the table, then people can kind of page through and see what all I have to offer. So yeah, I'm happy with this. This turned out fun. It's gonna be an easy way to share my work with people when they ask about it, and I think it was definitely worth like 15 minutes that it took to turn on the printer and run all of these off. So I will be coming back pretty soon with some vlog updates on how book 6 of Spectrum Legacy is going. I am really excited about it, and I'm really hopeful that it is going to live up to the things that I was able to do in Paragon of Shadow, because so far this is like my favorite thing that I have ever written, I think, and I really want to be able to follow it up well. So, but yeah, that's it for today. I'm stopping there, and I will see you next time. Bye.